Good morning and welcome to Visions for Equality's How to Reduce Paperwork Stress as a Caregiver. I am Michelle Abraham Montgomery, and I am here with my partner, Sherelle Robinson.
Okay, so I'm going to start off just a little bit of background about myself. I am a family navigator under the Systems Navigation Initiative with Vision for Equality. And I function in human service capacities, such as being a counselor, being in social work with youth, but I've also served others in education, business, and law as a paralegal and as a judicial clerk. Most of my human service work has been around mental health. So I became a registered mental health facilitator, just basically to increase the community's awareness about mental health concepts and how they can access different resources. And that's somewhat my capacity here at Vision, um, sharing with families how they can access certain resources and making them aware of certain things, just like we're doing here with the workshop. Particularly, I've been a longtime advocate for children's rights, for their quality of life, and for them to have equity, especially in the built environment. And I'm a mother of two, and one of my children, my youngest child, is neurodivergent because she is on the spectrum and has a complex medical history. And in addition to that, my caregiver role with her, as well as with my late father, and seeing others around me being caregivers, I have a unique empathy for the caregiver experience. So that's what sort of brought me to my role here with Vision.
Thank you for your service to family, Sherelle. That was awesome. I am Michelle Abraham Montgomery, formerly known as Shell. I am a family support specialist for the Trauma Informed Care Project at Visions for Equality. I am a proud wife, awesome spelled intentionally with a U, and honor autism mom of two adult children, both being on opposite ends of the spectrum. My son is also on the spectrum. My daughter, she has some mental health challenges or differences, I should say, out of respect, having them myself. However, we are learning how to cope with them every day along our journey, and we respectfully are being in this wonderful space, being knowledgeable of that, and now learning how to navigate our journey successfully. Also, I am a glam mom. I like to think of myself as glamorous to three beautiful grandchildren, and my granddaughter is the first grand girl, I should say, in the family after 26 years. So we definitely were super excited about her arrival, and we are celebrating her in our family. My son is the first community autism peer specialist for the city of Philadelphia, and he works out of the Community Wellness Engagement Unit, which is CWEU. I am a seasoned child and family advocate, community research partner for the University of Penn, a Lynn Fellow alumni at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. I am also on the Leadership Council at AJ Drexel Autism Institute and the EO of and co-founder of Special Success 911, along with my son, Khalil Robinson, who is works for the city of Philadelphia, and we have a nonprofit 501c3 organization. I'd like to think of myself as a trailblazer when it comes to community affiliations as well as community partnerships. I feel that my niche is finding a seat at the table, and if there is not a seat available, I will bring my own respectfully. Visions for Equality Family, a Philadelphia Family Support Project, and we have these three different segments here, which is the system navigation, trauma-informed care, and targeting families with young children.
All right, so our first initiative under the Philadelphia Family Support Project under Vision for Equality, say that three times fast. That our systems navigation initiative is what I am under, like I mentioned, as a family navigator, where we provide peer support resources for learning how to manage your encounters with disability systems, because it can be confusing, especially if you just got into this lifestyle, so to speak. And it is a lifestyle because it's a certain way of living that is completely different from the typical public. So learning how to manage your encounters with these systems is really important, and we offer that through peer support under systems navigation. We also share positive approaches to the unique challenges that we have and decrease families' feelings of isolation and increase their access to connection and support, for instance, with the support groups and with what we're doing here. And the next one is the trauma informed care initiative, which is trainings like this as well. The Caregiver Express series actually has trainings of things like managing family dynamics, finding yourself again as a caregiver, how to deal with frequent hospitalizations, time management tips, and things like that. There's also trauma therapy referrals offered with financial support. So under a first come, first served basis, Vision for Equality will pay for your first 3 sessions with that referral. You would just reach out. Our contact info is going to be at the end of this. There are also support groups, like we mentioned, on Vision for Equality site under events. You'll be able to find upcoming dates for those. And again, peer-to-peer support, a listening ear or shoulder to lean on. And lastly is the Birth to Five project, which is targeting families with young children. That project basically services families with young children at the time of diagnosis or before they get diagnosed. Maybe they want to learn more information or they have suspicions. And there's peer support here as well, and empowering families to presume that they know what they know, as opposed to sort of thinking that you have to um, sort of succumb to whatever the providers say or whatever physicians might say, just knowing that you know what you know because you know your family member best. We share the life course tools to help families plan, whether it's a small or a large goal. And there's also providing a safe place, excuse me, to help everyone process their unique grief and loss that caregivers experience, because there is a grief that is experienced as a caregiver where you sort of grieve what you thought life would be if you hadn't embarked on this journey, and that is very unique. So we offer unique peers to aid families through that process. And Shell will lead us through the agenda.
Awesome. Thank you, Cheryl. That was beautifully said. For our agenda, what we will be covering today, moving forward, is how paperwork stress impacts families. We'll also identify and differentiate different types of documents. There's the legal documents, educational documents, financial documents, medical documents, and those are quite a few documents, so I can definitely see how the stress would come in. And then Sherelle will close us out with our final tips. How paperwork stress impacts families. Paperwork/document types. There are the educational and school documentations, and those are the IEPs, in which we're going to get on a little bit further. We'll talk about a 504 plan as well as an FBA or functional behavior plan, are the type of documentation that we will discuss a little further as we go through our presentation. There are also medical documentations. These are documents that you might get from doctors or directives that you might get when you get medication, and it tells you about how to utilize the medication properly, side effects, or medications that you should not use with it. That's very important. So we want to keep those things in mind. Other disability related are therapist notes and other providers that may have documentation or any type of anecdotal notes that you will receive as well. We'll also go into family finances, documentations that are important to have on hand, as well as the protective documentation. And these are underneath of the insurances, and we'll talk a little bit more as we move forward.
What I was thinking of when you were describing like the school documents too, I know that sometimes uh regular school documents like notes from teachers, notes from nurses, like certain grade or progress reports, sometimes they can be an inside look or a way to view how a student is progressing or things like that. So those are important. Maybe I should have added some dashes down there for us. Those are some of the school documents that might be important too, even though they're not specifically related. They're not medical documents, so they're not specifically related to our loved ones' diagnoses, but they can give us some insight about, where progress is or where therapy should be going, the direction it should be moving in based on how they perform in school too. So that was something I just wanted to um add because it came to mind.
Thank you.
Oh, and I didn't even notice I'm next. So, how can work stress impacts families? So, losing important documents, wait times for specific documents, the cost of getting documents. There's always going to be a cost for processing something, um, documents from the government, or if we want certain documents done by certain organizations, the extent of information. So, the fact that we are unable to memorize everything that's needed from the documents makes it important that we have them on hand or have a electronic version that we might be able to refer to. That's really stressful to have to plan for that as opposed to, just regularly living your life. Like just thinking that you have to make sure that you have access to documents that might be regarding life or death situations or just really important considerations for schools to take into account. That's really stressful, and that's a part of the stress that impacts families as well. The domino effect. So the delay in receiving care and assistance is a part of the stress that impacts family, and the fact that our paperwork seems to be ongoing for individuals who have loved ones with diagnoses that are lifelong. It seems like when is it ever going to end that we don't have to deal with paperwork? So that can be a part of the stress that is felt from having to deal with so much paperwork. And going into the legal documents, the basic three that we're going to highlight just by definition is the living will, the living trust, and power of attorney, as well as the guardianship. So the living will basically notes life support preferences and other related preferences, making decisions prior to that. And it's consulted when a person actually can't speak for themselves. And a living trust is a legal instrument, obviously, that's developed and takes effect during a trustee's life. The truster actually creates it. So that's the name of the person who actually creates it. The person who it's for, who is supposed to serve, is the trustee, and the beneficiary is the person who receives whatever the trustee wanted to give. So there are certain requirements, obviously, for it to be valid, and it's that a truster is involved. It comes from a truster. There's trust property, so whatever the property is in the living trust that the trustee wants to pass on, there has to be property involved, or not real property, meaning real estate, but just general property, whether it's jewelry, whether it's a car, whether it's an account, things like that. Valid purpose, it has to be a valid purpose. Obviously, it has to be a legal purpose and it has to make sense. And there has to be a trustee. So a person who actually carries out the duties that's wanted by the trustee, the person who's offering something to the beneficiary. And obviously there has to be somebody to give it to, which is the beneficiary. So all of these things have to exist. They have to coexist actually for it to be valid. And the power of attorney, there are two common types that are usually referenced, and that's the power of attorney of health and power of attorney for finances. This person acts on behalf of another in a specific capacity. So basically, if that's the health capacity or the financial capacity, and if the person who needs to be spoken for becomes incapacitated, or maybe they're unavailable, maybe they're physically away out of the country or across the country for a specific time, and somebody needs to act on their behalf, this is what might kick in. And the person is selected by the individual who needs to be spoken for, and the person who's selected is considered to be their agent and remains so, and if only if it's a durable power of attorney use. So you would need to consult an estate attorney to get some specific information or some of the resources that we'll note later, to read up a little bit more about the difference between the general power of attorney and a durable power of attorney. And lastly, the guardianship. A guardianship is completely different from the others that we mentioned because it's established after a person is already considered incapacitated. So the other documents are created before a person becomes incapacitated so that they can be used when the person can't speak for themselves. But this is established after it's already happened. And there's a court-appointed person used for financial or health decisions where someone can't make these kind of decisions. So that's a huge difference as well, that the court is involved and that is created after the person can no longer speak for themselves. So that's the major takeaway, that's the difference. and Shell will mention about the educational documents.
Thank you. So the types of educational documents that we will be covering is the IEP/504 plans. Then an IEP is an individual educational program, also known as the IEP, is a legal document under United States law that is developed for each public school child in the US who meets special education. It is created through a team of the child's parents, a student, and district personnel who are knowledgeable about the child's needs. IEPs must be reviewed every year to keep track of the child's educational progress. An IEP outlines the special education experience for all eligible students with a disability. And next, we'll have the definition of a 504 plan. A 504 plan is also known as Section 504 plan of the Americans with Disabilities Act. It is a formal agreement between the family and the school, ensuring that proper accommodations are made for children with medical and psychiatric conditions, allowing the children to receive education. We also want to keep in mind that you can have an IEP as well as a 504 plan, depending on what your child's needs academically and medically are. So don't feel that you can only have one or the other. Also, we're going to talk about the FBA, which are the behavior plans. A functional behavior plan a functional behavior assessment, which is the FBA, is a systematic process that helps identify the purpose of a specific behavior and its underlying factors. FBAs can be used to address academic, social, or emotional behaviors that are are of concern, excuse me. For example, an FBA might be used to identify challenging behaviors in children with autism spectrum disorder. Correspondence within the school. Correspondence within the school can be those documents that Sherelle had also um identified, and we can have a communication log, emails, notes from the nurse or a counselor, and a disciplinary notice also. Back in my day, it was called a pink slip. I'm not sure what it's called now, but all different types of correspondence within the school. These are documentations that you definitely want to make sure that you keep in a binder, or you want to keep in some type of a folder where you can go back to these, if that's information. You want to be able to keep it stored maybe by date or by month or by year, or whatever need or method is best for you. But you definitely want to make sure that these documents are stored in a safe, dry space, and that you are able to get to them. And also keep in mind that there should be either a trusted person or family member that also has access to where these documents are in case of an emergency, or you're not available in case you might need them for later. Financial documents. Family financial documents. So there are the budgets, tax document, receipts for major and disability related purchases. And I like to think about, when it comes down to finances, the green and the red really help me. So the green being like the green light. These are your pay stubs, savings accounts, inheritance, money that comes into your wallet. Those are what will help you with your green. And that could also fall under your budget sometime, because that's going to bring money into your wallet. Here we have also the red, and these are expenses such as utility bills, groceries, clothing, monetary that comes out of the wallet. So these things are red because they're going to take away from your expenses. Tax documents are very important. You want to make sure that you keep receipts if necessary, and you keep all documentations that will be needed to add to these these text documents throughout the year. So that way you will have a smooth transition when you are filing. And in regards to the receipts for major and disability related purchases, these type of documents are being referred to as being approved by the Social Security Administration. They have special instructions and requirements that they have to fit that in order to be identified and approved under Social Security. So if you are receiving any type of SSI, SSDI, or any other type of supplemental income, you want to make sure that before you make these purchases that you check that documentation and make sure that it fits under the guidelines for approval. That way, if you are to get a reimbursement, you will make sure that it's a smooth transaction moving forward. Budget type example. Oh, I'm sorry. Sherelle,
You okay?
all you.
So with the budget type examples, Shell gave that excellent example of the green and red. I'm thinking about trying it because it might be more simple. Excuse me, it might be more simple than the methods that I've tried. But some other examples include the ones you see here. So the 50-30-20 budget, the 50-30-20 is basically 50% of, so think of the 100% pie of your finances. 50% of that pie goes to your needs, 30% goes to your wants, and 20% goes to your savings and your investment. The unsteady income budget is perfect for individuals who maybe they're doing gig work or they're doing contractual work or temp work, or things just aren't steady for them right now. Um, it usually focuses on taking care of your necessary expenses first, and it's characterized by creating at least a minimum steady income to cover your absolute needs. So say for instance, you know that you're going to do, say, gig work for a specific number of hours, a specific number of days to bring in a specific amount to cover those needs. But everything else is sort of up in the air. So you would basically function that way. And then the next amount that you come in will be for making covering maybe savings, maybe a cushion or debt payments. And then if there's anything extra or surplus, then it will go toward your highest priority financial goal. And the room for fun budget is more so if your focus is everything necessary is covered, but we're trying to not go too far with our budget when it comes to having fun and actually do it in a regimented way that you don't regret later. That involves if experience in life is your top priority, then this is the budget that will be great for you. Whereas the key is to make trade-offs. So just trying to identify where you can allocate money from one space to another without throwing your budget completely off. And with this budget, it's typical that you have less money for savings and it takes longer to pay off debt. But if those two areas aren't trouble areas for you, then this might be okay. Then there's also the debt eraser budget, where if all of the other areas are covered okay for you and your main focus is to get down debt because that's your biggest obstacle, then this budget would be so that you can see the greatest return and you're able to also invest later if you sort of get this debt down. And the greatest point with this budget is that if you're involved in high rate borrowing, whereas the interest rates are extremely high, then this will be the focus first with this sort of budget. There's also general tools for getting started with budgeting if that wasn't something that you were taught or that you didn't use before, but it's something that you want to try. Those resources will be next, but here are the basic steps to getting started. So the first thing is to calculate your net income. So gross is obviously before taxes are taken out, and net is when the taxes are taken out, what amount is left. And next, you actually identify your monthly expenses. So your monthly expenses are typically either variable or they're fixed, which will be the next step. Things like rent, insurance, utilities, they pretty much stay the same. So those are fixed monthly expenses, whereas variable expenses might be things that they're not essential. They might be like clothing that you might buy, dining out, those sorts of things change. So those are variable or changing expenses, but they still should be tracked. And usually you can find these amounts if you don't pay attention to it exactly when you do it. You can use bank statements and things like that to add up what these are. and see what your habits are. And then lastly, you just make adjustments based off of what you find once you note this information. So once you see where expenses might be exceeding your income, you know where you need to cut back. Maybe you need to incorporate a high yield saving account, increase your retirement accounts, make bigger payments on your debt, things like that. You'll know what adjustments you need to make in order to make things balance out so that it's not too much, so that it's in a harmonious place as opposed to in the red, like Shell was talking about. And Shell will mention um, just a little bit more about the disability related purchases. We were speaking of, um, well, she spoke of how the Social Security Administration has specifically approved things that you can purchase, and in case there's Social Security reporting, these are some of the examples.
Thank you for that nice segue into examples of disability related purchases. And here we have bulleted, there are work furniture items that you can relate, whether that is a wheelchair or any type of furniture that you might need for your loved one or yourself that may have limitations where you need specialty items. So you want to, again, if you have to report these type of things, you want to make sure that they are aligned with the guidelines so that they can be approved when you are purchasing for reimbursement uh, purposes. Bedroom furniture, if you have to have a specialty bed or any type of a lift or equipment that needs to be affixed to your bed, or in your bedroom for comfortability as well as for mobility for that individual, yourself, your loved one, to be able to function more efficiently. You definitely want to make sure again that these things are approved and fit in line with these items. In your car, if you need any type of accommodations in your car, there are different things for now. Even you have hearing impaired drivers where they have devices in the car where lights might flash or different signals that they might not be able to see, or I'm sorry, hear, if they have any type of hearing um situations. But these things can be accommodations, can be added to your car. So that's nice to bring an ability to someone that may be having limitations that may on their own cause them not to be able to drive in that case. Electronics, we have electric wheelchairs and all different type of electrical devices that individuals may be able to utilize that will help them again to have mobility, to have abilities to do different things that they couldn't do on their own. And so these electronic devices and these purchases are very helpful for individuals to make sure that they can feel and be able to be in spaces as able people, even though they may have some limitations. And other equipment that may be in the home or whether at work or in school, and other realms of their everyday life. We want to make sure that you do some background information and do some research about it. Make sure that the equipment is the best fit for the person that is being purchased for. You don't want to just see the first thing that you buy, the first thing that you see. You also want to look at all different types of accommodations, specialties, and functions. Some things might have some functions that others don't. And it's not always about the price, but I think that it should be comfortability that is also a necessity when you are making these purchases for yourself or for your loved one. And so these are just some things to help you to think about when you are in the midst of about to make some type of purchases that are related to disability. Medical documentations. For medical documentations, there are medical portals through your healthcare provider that that we use sometimes for when we make these medical purchases, as well as therapy, assessments, and notes.
So I'll pick up from where Shell was. So with the medical documents, there are medical documents that you can retrieve from your patient portals through your healthcare provider. So for instance, if you want some um, a basic document that shows maybe your diagnosis or maybe the medication that you're on, a lot of times this information is on the portals through our healthcare providers, and you won't have to wait until a social worker calls you back or go to the office or wait until someone calls you back from leaving a message on these portals. You can just go onto the portal, download it, and you can print it out or save it yourself. There are also therapy assessments and notes. These are a part of the medical documents, as well as healthcare directives. And some healthcare directives are used obviously by individuals on our journey if you're disabled or you're caretaking someone who's differently able. The healthcare directives basically speak for the person when they can't. So basically under special circumstances, it's a final healthcare decision making by someone other than the patient. Obviously somebody else is speaking for that person. And the three general types are the do not resuscitate, the living will, which we spoke on, and healthcare proxy. In some states where a living will isn't used, healthcare proxy is used in its place. And there are also resource documents. So continuing with the resource documents, Shell will just note some of those supports that are available to help you with legal documents.
Yeah, so our first legal document that we will review is called the legal aid. Legal aid is so under the legal document support, there are organizations that are available that support us with these type of documentations that we may have some challenges being able to differentiate or know how to move forward. So our first one is Legal Aid, which is the legal clinic for the disabled. And they are located at 1513 Ray Street, Philadelphia, PA. And their contact number is 215-587-3158. And you can also reach them via email at lcdphila.org. Also, there's the POA/guardianship lawyers, and also NOLA, which is NOLA.com, if you would like to reach them by email. IEP/504 plans. We have went over that earlier in our presentation. However, if you would like additional support, you can reach out to the PEAC-Pennsylvania Education for All Coalition, and their email is info@paedforall.org. Their contact number is 267-232-0570, and they also are affiliated with the PEAL organization. Fine.
For the financial documents, there are resources for you to find, excuse me. Okay, I pressed the wrong button too. But so the resources for personal finance documents, you can get budgeting templates from NerdWallet, Canva, and also just opening up Google Sheets and Excel. Those can have some resources for you as well. And there are free budgeting apps like Quicken and Good Budget. But aside from these, you can actually Google free budget apps, and some other ones will come up as well. And now the final takeaway for reducing paperwork stress for us. And that's basically to recognize your limits before the stress even builds. So just identifying even in your body or the thoughts that you're thinking as the stress is building, so you can realize I'm sort of moving forward on this continuum of stress, and it feels like I'm about to reach a point of burnout where everything is sort of about to boil over. Just recognizing how your body feels and how you think as you're leading up to that. So you can recognize it and put some interventions in place to help you. In addition to that, just noting that how stress will impact your health and getting ahead of it. Like I mentioned, just recognizing those signs within yourself and also organizing manually or electronically or both, as we mentioned, as Shell mentioned earlier, if you want to have hard copies and or um, saving things electronically so you can reach it through your laptop or through your phone when you're on the go because you can't memorize certain things, or if you are somebody who has lots of like folders in different places and can't readily reach them, um, maybe you might not be able to get to your hard copy. So both work for different strengths that we each have. Some of us are more organized than others. Um, or setting times of the year that you actually review these documents or that you review what you need or that you review when you need to put different things into your budget. Um, Having those things calendared and identifying at specific times of the year when you actually should start doing these things could be a little bit more helpful too, because you'll know that this time is coming around. I need to get our financial house in order. That can be helpful, and delegating where you can, not trying to create documents that you don't know anything about or managing documents that are beyond what you can manage. Like I said, some people are more organized than others, and some people just know how to create systems that just work. Whereas some of us, that's not our strength. So just knowing where to delegate that, maybe to a specific family member in the house who's more organized or knows electronics more or knows how to create a manual folder system or binder or things like that, or knowing how to use certain software that can better help the family as well. All of those things can be things that your family takes into account. And these are some of the resources that we pulled all of the information from that we use today, besides our personal experiences and our contact information. If you wanted to reach out for any further questions or anything like that, there is a number missing from my work number, so you have to use um, the email. And that is the end of the workshop. If Shell, you had any last words?
No, thank you so much, Sherelle, for doing this presentation with me. You did a great job. And I hope that the information that we share with you is both beneficial, informative, and comforting to you or your loved one. So have a great day on purpose today. And we thank you so much for reviewing our presentation. Have a great day.